Well, hello again, friends. Welcome back to another Firepit conversation. Richard here, and I'm just great to see you again. Great to be back here. Great to be able to share some more thoughts with you all this week as we work our way to the end of another week. I pray everybody's doing well. It's been a busy time in my domain. A lot going on, a lot of planning, a lot of work going on as well, so just constantly keep me busy, there's a lot of good in that. I think there's a lot of good in just having some things that I get to focus on and really get to put my heart behind and do, and it's been really good from the Anvil weekend and other things that are going on. We got if I haven't mentioned before, we're doing a study through Morgan's new book, Becoming a King. We're doing a 6-week online study, which is pretty exciting to step into that, and inviting men into that from around the southeast and other areas of the country that are joining in and through this online discussion, and it's pretty cool aspect. So that having that going on is really awesome over the next 6 weeks. And there's so much else to just think about. I got the chance last night to actually sit down and actually do some more writing again, which was exciting. I haven't really touched too much of that over the last couple months since I started ramping up with my new day job, and actually got a little space, got a little margin, and sat and worked on that a little bit yesterday, and it was exciting to get another chapter done. And I look forward to as that really comes together of sharing some of that. I don't want to get too much into it as it's still developing, and there's a lot of thoughts I'm still unpacking, and there'll be things that I'll probably change and edit as it comes along. But really, just this idea. Excuse me, I'm dropping stuff here. Just the idea of the thousands of choices we make every day, of what that means, and how we have to really the results of the choices that we make, including starting from the choice of choosing to surrender to Jesus, and what that looks like, and the thousand choices we have to make each day to just continue to stay in that, to stay locked in with Him, of being able to choose Him, being able to choose the narrow road, continue to choose the healing of Christ, and what it looks like to just continue to cultivate that deeper union with God through that. And it starts with being willing each day to repeatedly say yes to that and offer God our yes and all that. So that's what I'm unpacking, and God really showed that to me over about a year ago, when that whole idea just started really coming about, and had sat and was penning some words that just come to mind one morning in my journal, and lo and behold, there it went. It just kind of took off from there, and but it's not a process that I wanted to rush. I don't want to just throw content out for the sake of throwing content. I really I'm relishing the process of being able to write about things that I've really been able to walk into, been able to live through, and have been a reality for me, and not just some theory that I'm sharing, but I share it from my perspective of what I've gone through and what I've walked through in my years in my faith, and even before my faith. So I'll share more of that in the future as we press ahead, and as that continues to unfold. So what I really wanted to go today, as I mentioned, and I announced a couple weeks back, we opened registration for the Anvil Men's Boot Camp, the Anvil weekend that takes place in November 12th through the 15th. And we're very excited about that. Just we got the whole team together. It's difficult because we're scattered about, but we got most of the team together, and started really getting the plans in place for that, of what that's going to look like logistically and all that stuff. And there's just a lot of excitement, I think, around what that's going to entail. and the excitement of just inviting more men into the fold, inviting men from different walks of life, not just from our region, but from across the multiple states, and just inviting them into all this, and an opportunity for men to really step back and really from the chaos that this year has really brought, and lick their wounds a little bit, but also just really get their hearts recharged and dive deeper into what God's trying to show them as they step into the end of this year and into the coming year, what that's going to look like for their lives, and seeing what God may want to reveal to them through that. So praying over the men that are contemplating coming out, and just pray that weekend really unfolds. And I shared when I announced the registration that our mission with the Anvil is really all about guiding men into the frontier of their identity in Christ. And what I mean by that frontier, it's really saying yes to Jesus and surrendering Jesus is the first step, is where it begins, right? But the frontier is that realizing that growing in that identity of becoming the man that God originally created you to be. There's always more frontier to step into, and what we want to orient men to in this weekend is that there is a process of continuing to become. There is always frontier to step into, and that's what we're after showing, and that's what we have to realize and remember as we grow in our faith, as we grow in our life, as we're leading our families, our wives, our kids, and our domains, interacting in our work, our communities, and all that. There's always more frontier to learn in that, and that God wants to show us in the midst of all those things, right? So what does that look like for each of our lives? Our heart behind it is guiding men into that, and being willing to see that, and not being just settled in where they are now, but realizing there is a process of continued becoming, of continued growing, of continued frontier. The other side of that mission is as they step into the frontier of that identity and we also want to help them really cultivate learning to develop a fierce mastery over their lives and over the lives of those God's entrusted to them. In those words, fierce mastery, I don't know, when you hear that, and just think for a second of what does it mean? What does fierce mastery mean to you? What does it invoke inside of you when you hear those words? Because it can mean any number of things. When you think of fierceness, you usually think of aggressive, and I've read some of the synonyms that are associated with it, of barbaric, of savagery, of just and all these different things. There's different words that can be associated with it, but this has nothing having to do with that. This is all about the engagement of being actively engaged and passionately engaged in your own life and in the lives of those around you that God has entrusted to you. And that's what we're after. It's all about cultivating deeper engagement in your life. And it's wild, because I was just processing these words, and we want to be able to share that, what that looks like in our lives, from the way we engage in our walk with God, and choosing discerning which battles are ours to engage in, and what it looks like to love our wives well, and love our kids well, and all of that. And even in our daily practices in our homes of the different things, to use Morgan Snyder's term, becoming a generalist in the things that we learn to do in our lives. It's orienting to all those things. And I was actually reading yesterday, and when I'm trying to think of when I first heard those words, fierce mastery, and was first oriented to that. And I would say it was probably about 5 years ago I had first read John Eldredge's book, Waking the Dead. If you have not read that book, I would highly recommend you pick that up. Waking the Dead, a very good orienting read to really helping to stir and awaken our hearts, understanding the four streams of the way Jesus really operated in healing and discipleship and intimate counsel and now I'm going blank and I forget the fourth stream. So anyway, but it's a very, very, very good read, and I'd highly recommend you and reading it. But and it actually came out in a daily reading the other day, that exact section where I first got oriented to those words, and it's understanding of who we were originally meant to be, right? Of who God intended us to be, and not what our original glory is, not what this world says we are, not who, not the false self that we live in, not anything within our flesh. But I'm going to read this. It's just a few paragraphs here. It says, let's come back for a moment to original glory. The glory of God, the glory of God given to us when we were created in His image. So much light could be shed on our lives if we would explore what we were meant to be before things started going wrong. What was it that we were created to do? What was our original job description? And He takes us back to Genesis 1. Right? Genesis 1:26, when God said, let us make man in our own image and our likeness. And He instructed us to be fruitful and to multiply and to fill the earth and subdue it, to rule it, right? He said, let them rule. And like a foreman runs a ranch, or like a skipper runs a ship, better still, like a king rules a kingdom, God appoints us as governors of His domain. We were created to be the kings and queens of the earth, small k, small q. And scholar Robert Alter has looked long and hard at this passage, mining it for its riches. He says the idea of rule means a fierce exercise of mastery. It is active, engaged, and passionate. It is fierce. So think about that for a moment, for you friends, of what that means for you, or how active, how engaged, especially for, I'm really going to talk to men here, but the same is for women. How actively engaged are you in your world, in your families, in your lives? There's something that is substantially important of what fierce mastery can look like for you, and that's what we're after. That's what we're after, trying to really help orient men towards when we have them at these weekends and beyond. It's learning to gain more ground in their walk, in their faith, and through that and by that they learn to lead their homes better, their lives well, their families well, the way they conduct themselves in their work, and all that, and the habits that they begin to cultivate and create, that helps, just build deeper and deeper roots and deeper union with God through the course of their life. And just reading some of the things that I've read regarding fierce mastery. Let's see here. Morgan wrote that we were all meant to rule and reign and bring a fierce mastery and a goodness to some realm that God has entrusted to our care. We were not meant to surrender. So having that fierce mastery is huge. So we were meant to rule and subdue. That's what God's initial instruction was. Our original glory was to rule and subdue, to be able to have rule over a portion, some realm of God's kingdom, right? He gave us each a domain to rule over, as Dallas Willard defines it, our kingdom is the range of our effective will, right? So what does that look like for you, and how are you mastering that in your life? Whatever, like for me, I'll say for me personally, part of my kingdom and domain here is I got my home, my house, my yard. How am I caring for that? My wife, my marriage, my kids, who are almost who are practically adult now, and they're fixing to they'll fly the nest soon. My daughter's fixing to move off to college next week. But while they're here under my care, how am I exercising that fierce mastery of those that God has entrusted to me? My work, the things that I do, the ministry that has really been a big part of my heart. How am I cultivating care in that? So there's a lot of things. So what does that look like for you? When you just do a self-inventory of what your domain is, of what your kingdom is, right? And how have you learned to really exercise fierce mastery? How are you engaged? How passionate are you in that? Are you actively engaged in that? So it's an important question to ask, and it's an important thing to really dive into and really contemplate for each of our lives. Is when we're not actively engaged. And I'll readily admit there were times when I haven't been. I wasn't the most actively engaged, at least in the way that I should have been. And I'll think about that with my kids. Even before I came to faith, I wanted to be involved in their lives and take part, but I wasn't actively involved in helping to cultivate them to really grow into the men and women that God has designed them to be, and leading, and as Proverbs says, training up a child in the way they should go, and in the end they will not depart from it. And what does that look like? And I didn't have an orientation to that, but in the 5.5 years since then, that's something that I've learned to really try to step into. And have I done it well all the time? Absolutely not. It's something that I've had to learn, especially because coming to faith later in the game when my kids were already teenagers. I had a lot of catching up to do. So there's a lot of things that I've had to learn to really step into and learn and walk with as of how to exercise better mastery in that realm, and fierce mastery. So even in the habits the things that I like to do, like I said, I mentioned caring for my yard, for instance. That's a part of my domain, right? I used to hate yard work. I used to hate that. And I was very glad to hand that over to my sons when they got of age to start cutting the grass and all that. But actually, in the last couple of years, I've actually enjoyed getting out and caring for my yard. I'm not the best at it, but I like being able to be actively taking part in caring for that part of my domain as well. So I took that role back over, so I'm out here every couple of weeks. I'll be out there again this weekend, cutting this grass and all that. And I found myself, it was interesting, the last time I was out here cutting was actually just making funky lines in the yard and stuff, and just having fun with it at the same time. So there's a joy that can be cultivated in that, and having some fun and playing while you're at it. Excuse me. So yeah, that's really where I'm at this week. I really just wanted to really orient towards that, of understanding what the words fierce mastery looks like, why we've really chosen that as part of our mission for the Anvil weekend. And I think we've always kind of oriented that way, but we've never really put words to it. And now really having to put words to it, I really want to be able to convey that, of what that truth means for us, and what we hope it will bring for the men that take part, and men that are watching this. And I pray that you will consider taking part in the Anvil weekend in November. It's an exciting time, and it's a critical time, I think, in the hearts of men all over. we have been, you know, taken out in so many ways, and this year has been no exception. And there's no, I think the time is all the more critical for men to just be awakened, because that's what this world needs. The world needs more men that are actively engaged, that are actively that are awake, that are alive, that are oriented to the truths of their identity in Christ as beloved sons, that will walk as the beloved and will choose a life of continued training and mastery, and over their world. And it's just critical. And that's why we do this. That's why it's the mission that we've taken on, and we're not going to shy from. So that's where we are. That's where I am this week, friends. I just wanted to share a little more thoughts, and this was just right there in front of me, and I knew God was saying, hey, talk on this week, and it's like, okay, I'll unpack that a little more, and it's fun to unpack. So I hope this was helpful for you. Consider the Anvil weekend, man, and I'll put the link in the bio again, or the description of this video again, so that you can find the page to read more about it, to register, and hopefully to see you at Strong Rock Camp in November, and just really looking forward to that time. So friends, thank you again for joining me this week. It's been a pleasure, always a pleasure to be here talking with you and just sharing my heart and unpacking what God's doing in my life, and what He's wanting to be shown as well. So I look forward to seeing you back next time for another Firepit conversation. Until then, friends, take care and God bless.